Located east of the Salinas Valley and a few miles from Hollister, the Pinnacles National Monument is one of the most dramatic rock formations in California. It is also home to peregrine falcons, wild turkeys, bobcats, coyotes, and California condors. The Pinnacles are remnants of an ancient volcano that erupted 23 million years ago near Lancaster in Southern California. The stratovolcano was about 8,000 feet high and about 15 miles long. Due to the San Andreas Rift Zone on the Pacific Plate, the volcano was ripped in half and the Pinnacles moved about 195 miles north. What remains is one of the most spectacular locations in the state. Largely because of the local people that were born and raised in the area, the Pinnacles eventually became a national monument.
Pinnacles is a park of the people. All national parks are telling the story of the fabric of America, and Pinnacles is a story that is set aside because of the fabric of America. The local citizens were the ones that worked hard to make it a national park. They realized its value way back in the 1800s when they would have family reunions up here and Sunday socials and things, and members of the community would start to work with local groups like Rotaries and Chambers of Commerce and lobbied up to Stanford University, all the way up to Gifford Pinchot and Theodore Roosevelt to set the site aside as the second national monument in California and the 13th in the nation, January 16, 1908.
There is one gentleman still around who was born and raised on the land just outside the park, and his family has lived through a fair amount of American history. He was part of the Civilian Conservation Corps that helped to clear the trails and build the park back in 1933.
Ernest Charles Prewett. I'm 96 and a half, a little over.
Ernie Prewett is a cattle rancher by trade, and his family has owned the land just outside the park for 3 generations. Back in 1862, the Homestead Act opened up the West. Abraham Lincoln was President of the United States, the Civil War was in its second year, and Ernie's grandmother and her sister homesteaded next to the land that eventually became the Prewett Ranch.
They bought part of this and then homesteaded part of it. And that was, I'm not sure just what year that all took place, but my dad was born here in that same old building is back there in 1875.
That's right, 1875. And when Ernie's father was born on the land, well, Ulysses S. Grant was in the White House, and General Custer was still a year away from meeting his fate on the Little Bighorn. If you're a student of history, to give you some perspective on just how long the Prewetts have been ranchers in San Benito County, William Howard Taft was the President of the United States when Ernie was born. The Prewett Ranch is 517 acres, and at most, Ernie ran 55 head of cattle. And now that he's eased along in years, he's down to just 18 cows. Along with the cattle, they also grew wheat, barley, and oats for the workhorses. Ernie had 5 sisters and 2 brothers, and they all pitched in with the work on the ranch. Ernie graduated from Hollister High School, and to get to class, he rode a horse. Horseback was just about the only way to get around back then, and to see a bit of the world.
High school, I was very, timid, bashful, but the female sex just scared the heck out of me. After I got out of high school and I started riding colts, and I'd go visit neighbors, Fred Schmidt next door, and then Henry Melindy, Fred and Max Cruz, and then the Melindys over the hill. And then I've had time on up to Butch's, the Strone boys. One of them works there for Eddie Butts. Then back home, all on the same day.
To make ends meet during the Great Depression, Ernie's father began working as a foreman in the Pinnacles, and during the summers he put his son to work clearing trails. Eventually, the younger Prewett became part of the Civilian Conservation Corps, better known as the CCC, that was part of the New Deal enacted by President Franklin Roosevelt in 1933. A public work relief program for the unemployed, the Civilian Conservation Corps would go on to become one of the most popular New Deal programs and also one of the most effective. Roosevelt placed General Douglas MacArthur in charge, and George C. Marshall organized the Corps much like the military. The men wore uniforms, lived in camps, and worked in virtually every state in the Union, along with Hawaii and Alaska. Before he knew it, Ernie was part of the CCC, back to clearing trails, building bridges, and using a jackhammer to build tunnels in the Pinnacles.
A lot of hard work. For me, I was shorter and I was on the downhill side pushing a 120-pound jackhammer uphill trying to drill those holes. It was pretty hard work just holding it up there, let alone the vibration of that drilling into the rock.
Young men like Ernie Prewett were instrumental in the success of the Civilian Conservation Corps throughout the United States. Travel anywhere in the country, and you can still find the work and the work ethic that was the CCC.
The park is built from the people, and originally it were the people in the community that supported the park through building trails and through maintaining trails. And Ernie Prewett was vital in that because in the 1930s, the Civilian Conservation was formed, and he was one of the leaders of that group and would help the CCC boys come out and not only learn skills like rock building of bridges and dams, but also learning skills like spelling or reading. And so they were building a dream, and they were building a future for themselves, earning only $30 a month, and most of that money going back home to the family during the Depression. But people like Ernie in the community were the ones that were coming out and really making the program successful here in this park.
Ernie would go on to serve in the United States Army Air Corps in the Pacific during World War II as an armorer in a B-25 outfit. He also spent 2 years in Alaska prospecting for oil. However, he always stayed close to the family ranch, and he's been married to the lovely Margaret Rose Prewett for 55 years. They raised 2 sons and a daughter, and over the years, they held on to the ranch. The horses are gone, and there's just a few head of cattle left on the old homestead. What remains are the pinnacles in the park and the work that Ernie Prewett did with the CCC more than 75 years ago. If you're in the neighborhood, stop on by. Enjoy the views, the vistas, and walk the trails that a young man built for you so many summers ago.